Was it justice, or was it murder? Stay with me till the end, because the final twist will leave you questioning everything about love, loss, and vengeance. In the rolling fields of rural Missouri, where nights are quiet and life feels safe, a Navy officer kissed his wife and son goodbye, never knowing it would be the last time he'd see his family whole. What began as a simple trip to the grocery store turned into a nightmare of obsession, stalking, and violence. This is the story of Bobby, Sarah, and Jude, a family whose lives were shattered by one man's dark fixation, and how grief pushed Bobby from being a protector into becoming a man seeking vengeance at any cost. Family background. Bobby, 35, had served in the U.S. Navy for over a decade. Known by his neighbors as quiet, disciplined, and devoted, he built his life around service and family. His wife, Sarah, 28, was the opposite in personality, warm, outgoing, loved by her students at Prairie Hill Elementary School. Their son Jude, 7, was a bright, playful boy who thrived under her care. Their home in a small Missouri countryside town reflected who they were: modest, cozy, filled with family photographs and children's toys. People in town admired them. Sarah, the kind teacher; Bobby, the honorable serviceman; Jude, the sweet little boy. But beneath the calm of rural life, danger was drawing closer. The grocery encounter. One Wednesday afternoon, after school let out, Sarah picked up Jude and made a stop at the local shopping mall. It wasn't large, just a small-town collection of grocery aisles, a clothing store, and a cafe. As she pushed her cart, a man approached. "How are you?" he asked casually. "Fine," Sarah replied, polite but cautious. He nodded toward Jude. "Is he your son?" "Yes," she said firmly. Something about the man unsettled her. His tone was too familiar, his stare too intense. She ended the conversation quickly, finished her shopping, and hurried outside. As she loaded groceries into her car, she noticed him again, watching. His presence felt like a shadow she couldn't shake. On the drive home, her unease turned to dread. A car followed them, keeping pace. When she turned into her driveway, the vehicle slowed, passing just enough for the driver to get a full view of her home. That night, she checked the locks twice before going to bed. Stalking begins. The following day, the same man appeared outside Prairie Hill Elementary. He loitered near the parking lot, eyes fixed on Sarah as she left school with her son. That afternoon, he approached her again. "Can we be friends?" he asked bluntly. Sarah stiffened. "No, I'm married. I don't keep company with strangers." His smile faded. "Your husband's not around, is he?" She froze, sensing the menace behind his words. Grabbing Jude's hand, she walked quickly to her car. For the next 3 days, the man lingered, sometimes outside the school, sometimes near her street. And then, just as suddenly, he disappeared. Sarah began to relax, convincing herself it was over. But she was wrong. The night of terror. On the 6th night, at 11:45 p.m., headlights cut briefly across the lawn of Sarah's home before shutting off. A car sat silently in the dark. Through her CCTV monitor, she strained to make out details. The countryside was pitch black at night. The car didn't move. Minutes ticked by. Then the door opened. A figure stepped out. He walked toward her house with quiet determination. Her heart raced. She dialed 911. Before help could arrive, glass shattered. The intruder smashed through the living room window, armed with a knife. Sarah screamed. The struggle was violent. Furniture overturned, picture frames shattered. She fought back, desperate to protect herself and Jude. Upstairs, Jude awoke, his heart pounding as his mother's screams echoed through the house. He ran downstairs and froze. His mother lay on the floor, blood pooling beneath her as she struggled with the attacker. In one final, brutal act, the intruder plunged the knife into Sarah's neck. Jude screamed, running to her side, pressing his small hands against the wound, begging her not to leave him. By the time police arrived, Sarah was gone. The town was stunned. The murder of a beloved schoolteacher in her own home shook the community to its core. Police scoured the scene. The CCTV camera had captured everything: The car pulling up, the break-in, the man's face illuminated in flashes of moonlight. The killer had made no attempt to hide. When Bobby returned home from deployment, he rushed straight to the police station. "Who killed my wife?" he demanded. Detectives explained they had a suspect but were still gathering evidence. To Bobby, it wasn't enough. He couldn't sit back and wait while the man who slaughtered his wife was free. Rewatching the footage over and over, Bobby memorized every detail of the intruder's face. He began asking questions around town, piecing together leads the police were too slow to chase. The man's name surfaced. Tom. Who was Tom? Tom wasn't a drifter or a stranger from out of town. He was a taxi driver, a familiar face in the community. Married, father of 3. To most, he seemed ordinary. A man who worked long shifts behind the wheel, ferrying people home from bars, schools, and shopping trips. But to Bobby, Tom was the monster who had destroyed his family. Neighbors began whispering. Some recalled seeing Tom near the school. Others remembered his car idling outside Sarah's street. Piece by piece, Bobby built the picture. This wasn't random. Tom had been stalking Sarah from the moment he saw her in the mall. Bobby's obsession. At night, Bobby replayed the CCTV footage, tormenting himself with Sarah's final moments. He kept the sound muted, unable to bear her screams, but he watched her face over and over. Each time, rage grew inside him. The police investigation dragged on. They had identified Tom but lacked enough to arrest him. The wheels of justice turned too slowly for Bobby. For him, there was no justice in waiting. Why had Tom done it? Investigators believed it was a toxic mix of obsession, rejection, and control. At the mall, when Sarah confirmed Jude was her son, Tom fixated on her family life. When she rejected him at school and revealed she was married, it fueled his rage. In his twisted mind, if he couldn't have her, he would take everything from her. The late-night break-in wasn't spontaneous, it was calculated. Tom had followed her for days, mapped her schedule, and struck at her most vulnerable moment. This wasn't just murder, it was possession. Bobby's decision. For Bobby, grief turned to rage. Rage turned to obsession. He had sworn to protect his country, but he hadn't protected his wife. And now, his son lived with nightmares of blood and screams. One night, Bobby made a decision. If the law wouldn't bring justice, he would. The revenge. At 1 a.m., Bobby drove silently through the countryside until he reached Tom's home. Inside, Tom, his wife, and their 3 children were asleep. Bobby stood in the shadows, staring at the house. He remembered Sarah's laughter, the smell of her cooking, the way she kissed him before deployment. He remembered the CCTV footage, the moment the knife struck her neck. Tears burned his eyes as he poured gasoline across the porch, the walls, the windows. With trembling hands, he struck a match. The flames erupted quickly, consuming the wooden frame of the house. Smoke filled the night sky. Inside, screams pierced the silence. Bobby didn't move. He stood there until the house collapsed, knowing Tom, his wife, and his children would never leave alive. The aftermath. By morning, the house was reduced to ash. The fire was labeled suspicious, but investigators never had evidence to tie Bobby to it. The community was left divided. Some whispered that Bobby had done what the law couldn't, that he had avenged his wife. Others saw it as tragedy upon tragedy. 2 families destroyed, children dead. Bobby never confessed. He returned to his Navy duties, carrying his grief in silence. For Jude, the scars ran deepest. He grew up haunted by memories of his mother's screams, his father's silence, and the night his life was torn apart forever. The story of Bobby and Sarah remains one of the darkest chapters in Missouri's countryside. A devoted wife and mother taken by obsession. A Navy husband transformed into a vigilante by grief. And a child left with memories that will never fade. In the end, 2 families were destroyed, one by obsession, the other by revenge. And in the quiet fields of Missouri, people still whisper about that night, wondering where justice truly ends and vengeance begins. If Bobby truly took the law into his own hands and burned Tom's family alive, do you believe his actions were justified as vengeance for Sarah? Or do you think he crossed the line and became a criminal himself? What would you have done in Bobby's place? Drop your answers in the comment.